Hello and welcome. Firstly, thank you for joining us. It's a delight to have Kate, Peggy and Nat with me so far, and hopefully we may have a couple of others joining us, but we've got such an exciting session planned. I think we should just kick off. So to try and help ensure that we all get to hear from all of you, what I thought I'd do is start off with a question and I'll direct it to each of you in turn, if that's okay. So Kate, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, before we just came live, we were just chatting about your next big adventure. So could you tell us a bit more about that and how you get yourself in the right mindset to be able to tackle a challenge like that?
Sure. So in 8 days' time, I'm attempting a world's first for women, which is the furthest distance cycled on a static bicycle in 24 hours. And how I get into the mindset, well, it's been 16 months in the training. It's a really strong plan and structure to make sure that I know what I need to do every day. So there's less wiggle room for my brain to convince me that bed is much more, where I want to be than the bike. And yeah, the mindset is a bigger vision. I know why I'm doing it, and it's more than just me and a bike. So that's what really keeps me motivated.
I love it. And have you found kind of having that really good plan and ensuring that you have a vision so you know the reason for doing it, is that really important?
Yeah, for me it is. I'm inherently lazy. I'm always looking for an excuse not to train or to sort of eat or watch TV too much. So having that plan, it gives me that accountability, and I can hold myself accountable as well, so I don't rely on other people. And yeah, the vision just reminds me why I'm doing it, so I can actually find some joy in the multiple hours of training in my spare room.
Oh, I love it. I am actually inherently lazy and remain inherently lazy. So I could definitely take a couple of leaves out of your book on having a better plan and a bigger vision, rather than in my approach sometimes is a little bit like my revision diary used to be when I was at school. It was very colourful, very well planned, didn't actually do any of it, which is a little bit like my exercise plan. But I know that when I do push through, the shift that it has when your mind's healthy and your body's healthy to enable you to kind of go on and do more really does make a massive difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm sure you've noticed it as well. Whenever we play big in one part of our life, suddenly everywhere else steps up. Like my partner's so happy because I'm not complaining about the toilet seat being up anymore, because I've got something bigger than that now.
Yeah, I love it. It no longer is a problem that he's not emptied the dishwasher for like a fortnight. It's funny how we get better perspective, isn't it, when we have things that are going so much bigger. So completely. Thank you. Peggy, how about you, my lovely? Could you share with us how you use exercise and mindset to overcome challenges?
Well, one of the main things I do as a personal trainer, I train people, obviously, and I have a little case study that one of my clients has let me use. She very kindly wrote some bits down for me so I could, tell you guys. She said she has my client, she has PTSD and bipolar and ADHD. During the first lockdown, she suffered a major trauma. She began training with me in the garden at first, and then later progressed into the gym with me. She strengthened both physically and mentally, and she's coping so much better as a direct result of the exercise, and she feels empowered in weightlifting when she's weightlifting and things, and which is hugely beneficial for her PTSD symptoms, because it makes her feel stronger and able to cope. So with her PTSD, it's overwhelming and all-consuming, and she gets like a fight or flight reflex. And now she feels like she can fight rather than flee into herself. And then she disassociates. So she feels like she's not there at all. So now she can stand up for herself and she can cope with things, and she's got coping mechanisms because of what we're doing training wise. So I'm a bit nervous. So
it's fascinating. And it's so interesting, isn't it, that you can what you can do with your mind if you train it in the right way. I mean, not that this is the same as exercise, but I did hypnobirthing, and just teaching yourself to go, do you know what, actually it's going to be painful, but I expect it to be painful. you can then actually get through something like childbirth without needing anything else. It teaches you the power of the mind.
One of the big things that we said, because she's on obviously quite a lot of medication for her bipolar and everything else, like a lot of her things can't be treated. But one of the big things that we did talk about was exercise as a prescription, as opposed to, like, the title of our talk tonight was the art of using exercise to defy challenging times. But you could change it to the prescription of exercise to defy challenging times. So kind of thing that I was thinking about today is like things like type 2 diabetes. It can be reduced with exercise and things and stuff like that. So we were talking about that a lot as well today. But she says for her, mentally, it reduces her anxiety, everything like that. But it does actually, without medication, she can't cope with it. But for other people, it would be on, like, talking about wellness and mental health, like I know Nat does this a lot. It would be quite good to look at and changing the title slightly, looking at a prescription of exercise for slightly like lesser things. I don't know, it was just something that we like discussed.
That's fascinating, because I think you're right. I think it can sometimes be, it's giving ourselves back an area where we can feel back in control, isn't it? When, you know, I know whenever I faced like real challenges, I will go and find something in my life that I can control the living daylights out of, just to actually feel like there's at least one bit that is in my gift. It's in my ability to do when the rest of the world's gone a little bit doolally tat on me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to cope with all of those things. Actually,
definitely. It's just a different, you know, and it's like, I was thinking as well, us as trainers as well. I mean, Kate, you obviously with your triathlons as well, do you teach as well, or?
I teach I'm a leadership coach, but I work in the mindset more than I do in the physical. So what you're saying is really intriguing.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if we kind of change the angle of the question, what we can do, like, not saying, but like thinking what we can do as trainers to like prescribe exercise to our clients and things like that. It could be quite a different thing, like using our skill sets onto people adaptions. Like I had a rugby club, they wanted to, you know, do something completely off left field, so I taught them Pilates. So we did rugby Pilates, so I used my sports specific coaching to teach them Pilates. It was really interesting, and you know, it was great fun, it was hilarious, but they enjoyed it and it worked and it lifted spirits and it works for all of us. You know, I don't know.
Well, sport is a form of, and Kate, interesting that you know you're a leadership coach too. I would imagine sport and exercise and the ability to build teams together and kind of build that common purpose almost. You've got to be in it together, haven't you, if you're doing something like that? Do you find that can be quite a useful way of helping people adjust?
Yeah, completely. I think sport is a great way of seeing ourselves under pressure, and everyone's got a role. So example, my world record in 24 hours, I'm on the bicycle. That is my only job. I have someone who looks after nutrition, someone else who looks after the operations. We've got timekeepers, we've got witness, we've got, you know, software, etc. So it is a way of learning how to delegate. We've even got a full-time chef coming in to make sure everyone's fed and watered. There's a lot of moving parts that everyone's playing the role, but if you look from the outside, you might only just see that one leader or that one person on the bike, and it's so not true. So I absolutely adore sport because it's the transparency of where I am in my life and what areas I need to work on. It's working in the blind spots.
It's amazing. It's that real sense of team. It reminds me of I think it was JF Kennedy, wasn't it, who went to NASA and met the guy who was sweeping the floor, and when they asked him what he was doing, he said he was putting a man on the moon, because actually what he realized was the importance of his part within that program, and if everybody played their part, then actually you achieve the ultimate goal, even if it's not his name that we remember. It's Neil Armstrong or it's, you know, somebody else in that agenda, which is I guess a similar thing, isn't it, to kind of yours. You'd be the person that we remember when you hit that milestone, but it's the team behind you that's supporting it as well.
Yeah, completely. And so I actually had a meeting with my team. It's 15 volunteers, you know, not one of them, one of them's paid, that's it. And I said, all of us are elevating. So you might think it's my world record, but I promise you, every one of you will change. Every one of you will be rippled out because you're stepping out of normality, you're stepping away from your excuses into your own level of uncomfortability and greatness. So I'm expecting a lot of, like, I call it pops after the World Record Day for my entire team to start, networking or growing or expanding and seeing some magic for them too.
Oh, I love that. I do often say to people that we grow through our pain only when we go through our pain. So only when we step into something that is uncomfortable do we really step up. So Nat, my love, and then Jamie and Warren will come to you guys as well. So thank you so much for joining us. But Nat, could you share with us a little bit about how you use exercise to overcome challenges or challenging times, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think working is quite stressful these days. A lot of workload. And yeah, I mean, I've been practicing Tai Chi for like 24 years. Warren knows me from class, right? So, I wondered what the noise was. Sorry, basically we got a bit of static, and I was just trying to work out who it actually was. Oh, it's the dog chewing a slipper. Never mind. But yeah, so I'm probably 20,000 hours into doing Tai Chi, right? So, but I still have masses to learn on that front. But for me, it's a way of managing my mindset and staying clear from thoughts, right? And that's something that that's what I use exercise for, as well as building a strong body, right? And self-defense, looking after your injuries, like there are masses of things that I use Tai Chi for, right? And that, I think that's really it. It's a holistic kind of martial art that we practice. I don't know if Warren still goes to class. I'm sure he'll tell you in a minute. But we used to like wrestle and stuff up there in Oxford, and you train for 3 hours and then you get home and you're like hurt for 4 days, and then you wake up and you do it again, and it pretty much is what that class was like. And I just remember getting hit in the head I got kicked by this guy called Mark, I remember. And then I went off and did Muay Thai boxing for a couple of years, and I went back and just gave him a good kicking. It was brilliant. But for me, it's just, it keeps my brain clear and it keeps me healthy. But I think a lot of Tai Chi practitioners, like, they're basically, everyone thinks Tai Chi is like a hippie thing, right? And everyone's going to like meditate, but actually you're doing some work, right? And that's the thing is, you're exercising, yeah. You're on doing all these postures and stances and punching with weights and all sorts of things, right? But what I think a lot of Tai Chi practitioners leave out, because most Tai Chi instructors don't teach martial Tai Chi whatsoever, and they can't defend themselves at all. They've never wrestled, they've never fought with anyone. They just stand about and wave their arms in the air. And unfortunately, that's the attitude people have about it. But like, I started skipping again today because I just wanted to like get fit, and Peggy encouraged me on that, and I'm just like 13 minutes of skipping, it's just like, it ruined me. And I live on a hill, right? So I walk up and down this hill, but like, skipping is the way to go.
I'm going to take your word for it, having bought a skipping rope and done nothing with it. But it is the first step. At least I now have the equipment to ignore until I find some other motivation. But Warren, segueing in off going to the same classes as Nat, and he's just done such a beautiful job of selling it to us. So you get your head kicked in, you train for 3 hours, you hurt for 4. Where do I sign? But how have you found using exercise to help overcome challenges?
Wow. Okay. Well, I think one of the big benefits of having any kind of regular physical practice is you can almost use it as a touchstone. It's something consistent in an ever-changing landscape. So if everything else in your world can be spiraling out of control, or I think a lot of us going through sort of a lot of doubt and uncertainty at the moment, exercise gives you a something consistent, something that is there, and but it's outside of the normal sphere. You know, as most athletes will attest, when you're in that sort of training zone, it's almost like having tunnel vision. You're very focused, and all the other sort of cares and worries fall away. So you can use it as a means to take you out of those everyday pressures and things. But also well documented in exercise, of course, is something that we're all familiar with as athletes, is this state of flow, where again it's almost like being in a sort of hypnagogic state, where you're so hyper focused, almost like a sort of meditative state, if you like, and again, so massive psychological release. But of course, then there's the whole sort of neurochemical side to exercise as well. We know that exercising stimulates a cascade of lots of feel-good hormones and things. It can be a great way as well. Most of us tend to be overly sort of sympathetic dominant. And so exercise can be a way to rebalance the autonomic nervous system and bring about a more sort of, healthy and relaxed state of mind. But certainly just on a personal level, I think for me, having a regular exercise practice is just, something consistent that you can touch with on a regular basis. It keeps, it enforces a rhythm, if you like, when everything else about you is sort of shifting around.
Most of it, whenever I face challenging times, I always try and focus on something I can control, almost to make that the kind of like life raft in the choppy waters of my mind, which is, while I'm focusing on just this, then actually it doesn't matter what chaos is going on around me that I can't do anything with, I can actually just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
A set like hour to walk or a set hour to exercise, that always helps ground people, I think, sometimes as well, through the COVID thing especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. It's giving people that. I guess it is. It's that consistency, and that routine almost gives us some confidence, doesn't it? It gives us something that we can feel in control of when there's so many things around us, like COVID and lockdown and that are out of our control. That's something that we're able to kind of control. Jamie, lovely, could I ask you the same question? Could you share with us, please, how you use exercise to overcome challenging, or to help others to overcome challenging times?
Yeah, evening everybody. And please excuse the if there is background noise, and if I'm responsible for that. And if so, hopefully you can hear me. Is that okay? Yep. There's a lot of noise there's a lot of noise in the background. So, but we'll deal with that. So, personally, I'm gonna use two examples, personally and professionally. My background is helping elite athletes go to a different level. I tend to also work with, whether it's a business team, and what's interesting is the business world are always interested in how the elite athletes are performing, whether that's physically or mentally. And the elite athletes are always interested in the context of how does an organization operate and structure itself. And it's kind of marrying the two worlds together. And so what I want people who are at home listening to this, I want you to kind of have this image of three columns: sports, business, and life. Okay. And it's an integration of all three. And I say integration because if you only focus on one area, you're going to magnify challenges in another. So an elite sportsman, and I've had the fortune of working with Champions League winners and Olympians and all sorts of people at different levels. A sportsman in that column, they're completely focused on, they're doing exercise anyway. That's not a problem for them. The challenge comes when they have to look at their career or the business or in their personal life. That's where their challenges come from. It's not can they play, because that's why they're at an elite level. The business person, if they put all their focus on the business column, it's like a bit like the screen I'm looking at now. It's got 3 columns, yeah, and 2 rows. If you're just looking at the business column, then it will magnify challenges in the life column. So what we talk about is, metaphorically, if I'm world class in one area, it will magnify challenges in the other. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You've got 5 E's: energy, engagement, environment, economics, that's decisions, not just money or profits, and evolve. Am I growing? And I said the first one, energy. And if you think of it like Jenga, you know, you've got blocks of wood. Each one of those blocks is important. If you pull one out, it's going to have a challenge. You know, something's going to be off balance. But energy is at the bottom. Not because it's the least important, because it's the foundation of all the others. So a business person, you cannot be metaphorically world class in your business world and in life if you do not have good energy. And good energy really starts, it's good mental energy. I don't call it mental health. Mental health is a reaction. So we know, you call it exercise. We know exercise has an impact on mental health. But mental health, we're going to delabel it. We're going to take the label it off. Mental health is a reaction. It's like the car crash, and then you go and decide you're going to get insurance. You don't get insurance after the car crash. You get insurance first, and you might use the insurance if something happens. So exercise it's preventative. Let's not wait for something to happen. Let's not wait for the challenge and then go, oh, I need to exercise. So I often talk to, whether it's a CEO, an MD, somebody in the company, and I say, the first question I ask is, how are you moving? I don't say exercise, because many have been conditioned that exercise is a negative word. So the question is, have I moved today? Have I moved today? That could be, have I walked? Have I done my 10,000 steps? Have I, when people say yoga, let's delabel it and say, what's my mobility been like today?
Yeah.
Have I danced today?
It's interesting, because we do live a label, don't we? And dependent on the label that we choose to use, it can have a really big impact on our psyche, our psychology, and how we show up in the world. So, if we think about recently, we've been in lockdown. You could say I'm stuck at home, or you could say I'm safe at home. It's only one word difference.
Absolutely.
But the impact in how you show up and how you feel is massive. And I think sometimes it is that, what can we do to help people change the label so that they actually feel more comfortable with the choices that they're making?
Well, I think, and again, with exercise, before you exercise, you have to make a decision. Yeah, you have to make a decision. So it starts here first before I actually take some action. So delabeling is a skill, and if I say delabeling, my phone, it has a label on the back of it, a piece of fruit. Yeah. If I take the label off it, it becomes just a smartphone. Okay. So
yeah.
If, you get this feeling in your stomach, and some people say, oh, I'm nervous. Yeah. And it might be enough. I'm nervous. But if you take the label off it, and it's just a word, it becomes just energy. So somebody gave you that label when you were younger and said, you know, you must be nervous. You didn't learn that as a 5-year-old. Somebody told you must be nervous. Now, here's where it's interesting with exercise, because people will say, I haven't got time to, I'm too busy. I haven't got time to exercise. We'll move, you know, dance in the kitchen. And it's for me, it's for exercise, we have this image in our mind of what it has to be, instead of what's the narrative that I'm saying that exercise or moving is for me. I'll check how many steps have I done. Okay, I've done 7,000 steps today. Okay, but I've moved. I haven't been to a gym. I haven't run. Can't run. I just walk. So it's my story, not somebody else's story. And so coming back to the challenge, you cannot deal with challenges if you are not physically and mentally ready.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think you're right in the fact that it's finding the thing that it's defining our movements and our choices, isn't it? You know, I do a daily dance app with my 4-year-old. We're not very good at it, but we have an amazing time. She thinks we're brilliant. Anybody else would probably be horrified if they saw us. And my neighbours must think we're really weird because they can only see me from a height point of view because she's below the kitchen counter. So I just look like some weirdo dancing on my own. But do you know what? We have fun. It's a great start to the day, and you can feel justified for the rest of the day that you've done something before you go and do something else. And I think it is. It's finding your own. Defining your own goal, isn't it? Defining what good looks like for you, and not comparing that to other people. So, you know, my goal for me is my goal. I don't choose to compare it with others because that's their goal, their life, their choices, and they're not mine to have an opinion on. Really, mine's only mine to have an opinion on.
I would love to, you know, for me, I'd love to go for a run. I can't run now. I can't run now. In fact, with one of the football clubs that I work with, I run in the pool. They have a treadmill in a swimming pool, so I'll take advantage of that once a week. But I would love to go and wake up in the morning and just go for a jog. That's not possible for me, so I walk, and walking gives me that clarity, that headspace. You know, many times, again, people put the label on meditation, but you can actually meditate, and again, I never call it meditation. Again, I call it stillness, because meditation has it has these preconceived ideas that you have to sit on a mat. Well, you could walk in the woods. That's meditation. Walking your dog can be a form of meditation. So
I think it's giving your mind time, isn't it, to be still and to be silent. So I just wonder if I could open it up to the wider group. How important do you think it is to work on mindset and finding your vision? And I'm going to start with Kate, please, if that's okay, and then Warren, I'll come to you next, if that's all right.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical, and I really agree with what Jamie and Warren, you know, everyone basically, but specifically what Warren and Jamie were saying just now. And the example I give is when I didn't work on it, because as you know, in 2014, I was age group world champion in triathlon, but I physically was at the peak, but I hadn't emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, if you want, supported myself. So once I reached the top of my job, you know, I reached the number one, I sold my business, I wasn't free. I was free falling. And it took months to work through that. And I found myself, you know, back in Wales. I was living in Australia at the time, and I was miserable. It took me about 2 months to be able to leave the house consistently because I didn't have any concept of who I was. I wasn't associating myself as that world champion because I didn't feel it in my heart. And I felt that quite isolated from my support group because they just saw a champion rather than a girl struggling. So I wholly endorse working on the mindset, and I'm really working on it now to make sure every level of my life is supported as I grow and develop.
And that's so true. You can so often end up, can't you, so massively disconnected. You know, I suffered for a lot of years with imposter syndrome. So, you know, I had the big job and people saw that you'd got a, you know, good career, but I was just the ex-hairdresser with an MVQ, and I couldn't comprehend the two. So I would constantly think I'm going to get found out, you know, just turn around and go, put the hairdresser on the board, quick, get her off. This is really embarrassing, because there was a disconnect between what the world saw and what I saw. And I think, you know, I had to do a lot of work on aligning my mindset with my reality to enable me to be not just physically strong but mentally strong, to be able to forego the challenges, because, you know, life loves a plot twist, doesn't it? Just when we think we know what's going on, something else will come along. I mean, it's how do we have enough resilience in our fuel tank to enable us to kind of weather that storm, I guess. Warren, how about you? How important do you think it is for that kind of real mindset piece?
It's absolutely crucial. I mean, just going back to sort of what Jamie was saying earlier, when he's working with professional athletes, he's not just working with an athlete. You know, he's also focused on, you know, the business aspect of things. He's also working with, you know, the physical, the mental, and the emotional. Within the check system, which is the coaching system I use, whether it's, you know, working with professional athletes or somebody with health challenges, we have 5 foundation principles that need to be managed. So we've got sort of, you know, thinking, breathing, hydration, eating, rest, and movement. And if you neglect any one of those things, then you know, you're not going to achieve full health and your full potential. But also another model we use is the 4 doctors, which consist of Dr. Happy, Dr. Movement, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Diet. And those are our 4 sort of internal physicians that we can use to heal ourselves. And Dr. Happy deals with our, you know, our state of mind. So, for example, a lot of professional athletes are conflicted, because the thing that they used to love doing for the sheer joy of it has now become a business. And then there are lots of other pressures, and they suddenly find that their love, you know, they almost fall out of love, because suddenly they're having to deal with managers, they're having to deal with a lot of internal conflicting ideas about who they are or what defines them as a person. And you know, we underestimate the power of the subconscious mind, and so a lot of the time we're delving into things like Jungian psychoanalysis. I think whether you're an athlete or, you know, somebody with health challenges, the guiding principle, first of all, is actually figuring out what your one love is, what it is you're doing this for. And I think a lot of people are almost like rudderless ships. You know, they're navigating the seas of life. They don't have a goal. And in truth, you know, if you don't have a goal, then any route will get you there, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're so right. You know, we think that it's our thinking brain that does all of the work, and the reality is it isn't. It's our subconscious brain, because our thinking brain can only use between 7 and 9 thoughts, and in fact our emotions respond 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So at the point that we've thought, I don't want to feel that, it's too late. Everyone's already seen it, because we are emotional beings. So we respond with our emotion, and we back it up with our thinking brain. And I think once we get our head around that, and we've got that, we've built that emotion into what actually, how's it going to make me feel, how's this going to bring me joy and help my soul sing, then actually that gives you that additional fuel, doesn't it, to get through challenges. So Nat, how about you? Who I think's frozen. No, I think he has frozen.
It would help. It would help if I'd have unmuted myself, really. But Well, I think mindset's everything, right? And I mean, I think certainly when you're in a high pressure situation, like being able to remove yourself from it and take the time to actually balance your emotions means it's the difference between losing and winning, right? In whatever it is that you need to make a decision around, or you need to fix, or whatever it is that's stressing you out. If you can remove yourself from that stress, you're going to make a better decision. And that's what I use my exercise for as well. Like, I agree with what Jamie's saying about mindfulness and meditation. Like, you could go fishing and that could be your meditation, right? I say that a lot because unfortunately we get all these gurus that are like, yeah, you need mindfulness, and it's just such a sack of BS, really, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I mean, mindset is everything. You know that, Kim. We talk about it all the time. And exercise, I think, if you can free yourself from the stress, then you can actually analyze what the hell the problem is and write it down, and then you can come to a solution. I think that's my attitude on it, really.
Yeah, there is a psychological thing that they do, which is called passionate procrastination, which is where you write something down to yourself as a question if you can't answer it, and then you trust that actually your subconscious brain's dealing with that for you, and you can go and do something else. And when you come back 5 or 7 days later and read it out to yourself as a question, you'll have the answer. It's really bizarre, but I promise it works. And I do that often, because you can sit there desperately trying to work through a problem that you just can't find an answer to. And when I always think, one of the things that I personally do from a mindfulness point of view is I go and do baking or cooking, because just being able to just focus on something different and just be in the moment of creating something, for me personally, is a really good way of switching off my brain in a way that it doesn't normally ever want to switch off, bless it. It's a little bit hyperactive, but you find that steady state, don't you? Peggy, lovely, how about you? Do you find mindset and helping people choose the right one is important in what you do? You're on mute, my love.
Sorry, it's just the dog's barking, my son's up, and it's just wonderful. They never do this when then you're alone, it's fine, but when you get on the phone, that's it, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry. Like we were talking earlier about the whole we were saying earlier with Kate as well about the whole sort of mental health well-being as well, about the prescription of exercise as opposed to like using it to overcome challenges. I find it, a lot of my ladies that I do boot camp with, they found it very empowering, and it's time on their own, away from their families, away from time when they're cooking, not saying that all families are like that, but cooking, cleaning, washing, doing a school run, things like that, dad's at work or they've been furloughed, things like that, mum's at work, and now they can come out for an hour or two during the week, be on their own and actually do stuff with other women. They're finding their own space and their own time. That's been a massive thing, because obviously we've been allowed to do outside exercise for a little while, and a lot of my ladies find it's time for themselves, and to meet other ladies as well, to sympathize, to get on. And we've got a very close network of ladies, and to help each other. Like, a couple of my ladies are mums from school, so they've started giving each other lifts to school and looking after each other. So it's a networking thing that happens as well. So I know it's a little bit of a digress, but it is, when you're in a mum community like I work with, it's for the mental health and supporting each other. As a single mum myself, I'm lucky I've got my family, but a lot of my other mums, they've got family that live abroad, and they've been isolated completely, and they can't get that help that they need. And, they're on their own essentially. So they're looking for other ways, so it's not just exercise for mindfulness, it's also exercise to help to do the school drop-offs from your, mum that is in camp and things like that. I know it's a bit left field, but it's I think
it's about feeding all of the elements that we need, isn't it, for us to be happy and healthy. And Jamie, like you were saying, you know, we've got the kind of 3 pillars, and if we're if we're not addressing all 3, one of them is going to come up and cause us a challenge. And you know,
definitely,
I didn't realize, but you know, when one part of my life was going well, something else had car crash, you know, spectacularly, just to remind me that I wasn't focused on the 3 pillars, which I think is great. So Jamie, for you, and obviously you've already talked through making sure that people focus on kind of those 3 pillars, and also being careful of our labels. But how important do you think it is for people to find that purpose for them, for what, and define that for what works for them personally?
Yeah, I think you know, very often it's not avoiding, you know, you framed it as you know, how does exercise help with challenges? The way I like to discuss it with people, not just, you know, in sports, just people in sports, is that accepting that that's what life is. You know, there are going to be challenges, either in sports or in business or in life. In those, what's interesting in how people prepare for them is they're surprised when the challenge comes. And I asked a good friend of mine who is a deputy commander of the special forces, and I asked him one piece of advice that the special forces use, and he said, anticipate, don't react.
Yeah.
Just don't be surprised that you've got challenges, because that's, so if you're not, you know, if something happens, it's, why are you surprised? You know, if something happens in your personal life, you know, I'm of an age, I can't speak for everybody on the call right now, but I'm of an age where, you know, members of my family or my mother's family are having illnesses, and they're having ailments, or they're having, you know, early onset dementia, or somebody's passed away. You know, lost an uncle. You know, this is life. I'm not surprised. Doesn't mean I'm not sad. It's just these things happen, and if you're surprised at them, then it means that you were not actually, you're not preparing yourself to deal with what life throws at you. You know, and it's the opposite of positive thinking. I often say positive thinking is a lie, but so is negative thinking. That's also a lie, because it doesn't always turn out the way you thought negatively, and it doesn't always turn out the way you thought positively. But in the middle, there's this lovely space called neutral thinking. And neutral thinking, you know, is possible. Is it possible we could score? Yes. Do I definitely score? No. Do I definitely not score? No. It's possible. That's the truth. Is it possible we could get the deal? Yes, it is. Do we definitely get the deal? No. Do we definitely not get the deal? No. So why are you saying we're not going to get the deal? We're not going to get the deal. That's negative. But it's also not being positive. But neutral thinking is it possible we could get this deal? Yes, it is. That's the truth. And what comes from that possible is clarity. There's a calmness. And then you'll take different action, whether that's for your purpose, whether that's to get a job done. You'll take different action. When you take different action, you'll get different results. But the results won't be, and for those listening, I'm sorry to say it this way, but this is from, you know, as many people will have walked many miles, and I get the good fortune of helping people at all kinds of levels of sports and business and life, you're going to get a result, and it's not always the result that you want. And the next level in sports or business or life is deal with the result. When you commit in advance, this is what he said, anticipate, don't react. When you commit in advance to deal with what life throws at you, what the challenge throws at you, what work throws at you, what your family situation throws at you, then you loop back and you ask the question, is it possible the next day could be a good day? Yes, it is.
I love that. It's so true. I think getting ourselves into that, I'm a big believer that, you can't choose how somebody behaves towards you, but you can choose how you respond. And actually, if you look at, whatever's going on in your life, you can say, okay, what's this teaching me? Because, that in my opinion, everything that happens to us is either a blessing or both, even if at the time it doesn't feel like it. You're kind of there going, really, this is happening to me right now. But if we look for, what am I learning? What is this teaching me that I didn't know how to do before, that's going to help me be better prepared for the next opportunity? And I think there was I can't remember who it was that said it, but the first word that we should take out of the vocabulary is problem, because by default it says that it's hard to overcome. And actually, if instead we just look at everything that happens to us as an opportunity, some of them we're just going to enjoy more than others, then actually you change your approach to it, because it's no longer positive or negative. It is just what it is, and therefore you're going to hopefully make better choices to enable you to navigate through that.
And I think the challenge and this is the challenge when we get stuck in the loop of insanity, when we blame all the external factors. You blame your boss, you blame your husband, you blame your teammate, and you get stuck in this loop of insanity. And what I would really like people to consider is that when you're really, really, really at your best, you deal with what is thrown at you. If something happened now to my kids or your kids, you would deal with it. You wouldn't get stuck in there, oh, this happened, that happened. It would just be, you deal with, that's the mindset. You just deal with that. But when you get stuck in the loop of insanity, which is telling yourself the story as to why it's happened and who's responsible for it happening, then that actually creates the greater, the deeper mental challenges. The mental skill is anticipate and don't react.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I think often what happens is it's not what's happened, it's what we've made it mean. We react to the emotion that we've layered onto it, as opposed to the fact of what's actually happened. So, factually this happened, what I've made it mean is that the person doesn't like me, or they don't think I did it, or they don't think this, and I've laid it onto something from my past that I've yet to deal with properly. And yet, if you can take yourself out of that and say, no, that's emotion, factually what's happened, deal with the facts, then actually we can usually find we can go on and do things that we never thought were possible. I'm really conscious that obviously we could chat all night, but we've not got much longer to go. So I wonder if I could come to each of you in turn to just say, if you've got one big tip that you would like to share that's really helped you, that will help the people that are watching this to think about how they approach their next opportunity, be that a positive one or a challenging one, if you could share that with us. I'm going to start, please, with you, Warren.
Well, I think most people aren't motivated to actually act until things get so untenable. But if you have a dream big enough, you don't need a crisis. So I think I would go back to, figure out what your one love is. Find out that thing that really gets your juices flowing. And then simply ask yourself the question, is this thing I'm doing right now taking me closer to or further away from the thing I love? and then base everything you do off that.
Oh, I love it. That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is by Pablo Picasso, who said that the meaning of life was to find your gift, and the purpose of life was to give it away. Which it is. It's that fact, find the thing that makes your soul sing and then give that to the world. I love it. Kate, could I come to you next, please?
Yep, sure. I'm going to share something that really got me through some really challenging times in my past that actually created who I am today, if you want to call it that. And I completely empathize with what Warren just said, that before, my mindset was wait for that crisis. But today, the one sentence I say is, I'm the youngest I'll ever be now. So there's no tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Tomorrow might be worse. We can't wait for that when if scenario. So I remind myself every single day, I'm not going to get any younger. So now's the time to start living my dreams.
Oh, I love that. I love it. It reminds me of, in fact, we were talking about this just this morning in a networking group that I was in, which is, your past no longer needs you. Your future isn't promised. The only thing you've actually got is right now. And that's why they call it the present, because it's a gift. And I think if we look at it that way, and it also reminds me of the Chinese proverb, which is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And the next best time is right now. It's like, because you can't just use the fact you've not done it yet as a reason to not make the change when you're given that opportunity. So thank you so much for sharing that too. Nat, can I come to you next, please?
I don't know why I'm muting myself. It's not noisy here. Well, I think literally you just got to start where you are. Everyone beats themselves up, right? And if you go and compare yourself to a professional athlete, and you haven't exercised for like the last 20 years, then just try and be better than you were yesterday. I mean, that's really it. And find a sport that you enjoy. I mean, we were talking to James, what's his name? James, what's his last name? Yesterday.
James Owen Roberts.
James Roberts, that's it. Yeah, and he's a Paralympic athlete, competed in three different sports, right? But basically, he just basically says, just find something that you enjoy, and that's what I've found, and I've stuck with it, and it's given me a grounding in life, and I think that's probably about it, really. It's just have that one thing that you just love to do, and if you decide you want to build a body and do other things, then at least maintain what you were doing before, which gave you happiness. Yeah, and try and feed in everything else around that. That's kind of how I look at it.
I love it. Yeah, keeping yourself, I guess, grounded and giving yourself that consistency. Perfect. Peggy, my love, can I ask you for your top tip, please?
I think my top tip is just wake up believing that every day something wonderful is about to happen.
Oh, I love that.
Literally, just wake up and think, yeah, because tomorrow's unplanned. Today's unplanned. Just go for it.
I love it. And I think actually Coco Chanel said, always believe something wonderful is about to happen. And it's such a great approach, isn't it? To kind of like, look at everything on the, instead of what could go wrong, what could go right? What might go wonderfully from today. And actually, I think sometimes, what we look for in life is what we get. So if we look for something wonderful, we'll find something wonderful. And if we look for things that are going to go wrong, we'll find lots of things that are going to go wrong. And I always say to my little girl, without the rain, there'd be no rainbow. Yeah. So I think it's about trying to focus on what we're going to be able to get out of something rather than getting bogged down in the challenge.
Self-sabotage is always really good, especially when you wake up feeling you think, oh, my day's crap, and you just but yeah, so
you become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, don't you? If you get up and think I'm going to have a bad day, funnily enough, you kind of almost go out of your way to go, I knew it was going to be horrendous. Look at it.
You just go into Kevin Perry mode. Oh, hate my life. Hate it. Hate that. Definitely.
I love it. Great advice. Thank you. Jamie, if I could come to you next, and apologies, I think you might have fallen out at the point that I was just asking people if they could just share, if there's one really great tip that you could give people that are listening into this around how you approach life and how you approach challenges, please.
Give people your best 5 minutes. Doesn't matter who, no agenda. People often, they want to give their best because they're on a show or they're in an interview or they know there's something, there's like an outcome that they want. If you give people your best 5 minutes just because, it becomes
Oh, what a time to go. It was such great advice as well, wasn't it? To just, like, I guess be really present, because you're very, oh, hopefully I think he's coming back, so let's just give him a second. But I think, one of the things that I talk to people about is listening to understand rather than listening to interject. So actually, listen with the sole intent of understanding that other person's point of view. And Jamie, sorry, you ducked out right in the middle of some great advice.
sorry, yeah, it's for some reason it's just dropped out 3 times. Not sure why, but I'll say very quickly. So I call, it's four principles. Give people your best 5 minutes, with no agenda. The post lady, the guy on the train, so that's the first one. In many cases, for you guys, it could be give people your best hour or 90 minutes or whatever that is. Number 2 is show up. When you show up, good things happen. If you don't show up, good things cannot happen. Live by that principle. Sometimes you say, oh, I don't want to go to that party, or you get invited somewhere and you're tired. The rule is show up. That's it. Number 3, back yourself.
This is an amazing way to build suspense, isn't it?
He's frozen, look.
Clinging.
But he said he's only got one. He said he's only got 1 hour. So he's shall I ban him from the studio? I'll kick him out.
Seems a tad unfair.
I know. It's dreadful.
Don't go Pierpont on them, Nat. Don't go Pierpont.
No. But no, it's something wrong with this device. Never mind. Did Warren answer that question?
You did?
He did. Oh, good. I get confused.
I think everybody did. I think it's great advice from all of you, and I think it is that being really present, giving people the best of ourselves, listening to understand and recognizing. So I always think it kind of, one of the things to remember is we live in a world of polarity. For every up there's a down, for every left there's a right, and once we realize that just because I'm right doesn't make you wrong, and just because you're right doesn't make me wrong, and that actually we can be viewing the same thing from a different perspective and be open to that, then actually we all grow, don't we? We can all end up being better than we were before.
So Jamie, what was number 3? We were all on the edge of our seats there.
Well, apologies. So number 2, show up. Number 3, back yourself. Many people back another horse. Trust yourself. That's number 3. And number 4 is you never know who's watching. And if you never know who's watching, then you don't have to impress anybody. You just be you. And there's many a times, I get asked about, my own career and my own life, and I've got I'm doing some work right now with with somebody who's at the top of his game. I'm coaching him personally and his team, and we go back 12 years, and it literally is, if I hadn't have shown up, And all of you and everybody listening you could rewind, and there's certain moments, there's certain times when you were in a city and you went to a meeting that you didn't want to go to, and you turned up and you met somebody. You've all got those stories, but if you track them back, it will be a combination of you giving people your best 5 minutes and you showing up and you backed yourself, and somebody was watching and you didn't know. And 6 years later, somebody calls you up and says, can you do this? Or they've opened a door for you. And I live by that. It's not the piece of paper, it's not the studying you did, it's not, it comes back to the world works with two things: people and relationships.
Yeah. It's the great
and on
point
that
with
note,
it's a great point with which to finish with. I'd just like to thank you all so much for giving us your time and such great advice. Please don't go anywhere. I'm about to end the live, but it would be lovely to just say goodbye properly. But for everybody who's been watching, I hope you found it as interesting, insightful and useful as I have. And thanks to all of you lovely people for joining us. Thanks so much.